When you're a single mom, broke and alone, you pray differently. You pray like every word might save you. Well, I did, every night. And yet, the more I prayed, the deeper I fell. Until I learned, God doesn't just want to be asked, He wants to be trusted. I still remember that night like it was yesterday. The rain was tapping gently on the window of my small apartment in Hartford, Connecticut. The floor lamp beside the couch flickered, like even it was tired of trying. All around me were bills, electricity, rent, credit cards, hospital payments. The total balance in my bank account barely covered a week's groceries. I sat there, holding a cup of lukewarm coffee that I couldn't even finish because my stomach was tied in knots. My little girl, Emma, was 3 years old, but she wasn't with me. She was staying with my parents in the small town where I grew up. After the divorce, I couldn't afford to raise her on my own, not yet. I told myself this was temporary, that one day I'd bring her back home. But that night, home didn't feel like anywhere. A year before, my life had fallen apart. My ex-husband had slipped deep into addiction, gambling, alcohol, and then drugs. When the debt collectors came, I was the one who stood between them and him. I took out loans, maxed out credit cards, trying to fix something that was already broken, but it didn't matter. He didn't change. And one morning, I woke up and realized that saving him was killing me. So I left, divorced, ashamed, and broke. I moved to the city and took whatever freelance work I could, designing logos, writing product descriptions, editing photos, cleaning houses on weekends, anything to keep the lights on. Every night before bed, I prayed, Lord, please help me pay off this debt. Please send me a miracle. But month after month, nothing changed. No miracle checks in the mail. No sudden promotion. Just exhaustion and silence. I had always been faithful. I grew up going to church every Sunday. Even after moving to the city, I made sure to find a small parish nearby. I never missed Mass. I read my Bible, highlighted verses, sang hymns alone in my kitchen. But deep down, my faith had become something else. A kind of wish list. I believed God could fix my problems, but I never thought He might want me to learn how to fix them myself. I thought faith meant asking and waiting. I would kneel every night and whisper, Lord, please take this burden away. But I never asked Him what I was supposed to do with what He'd already given me. With my small freelance income, every dollar had a destination: rent, food, bus fare, loan interest. And still, I had to send a little money home for Emma's daycare and my parents' medicine. There were days I'd open my banking app and feel sick. The numbers stared back at me like a cruel joke. And one night I said out loud, God, are you even listening? Why is it that the more I pray, the worse it gets? For the first time, I didn't feel God's presence. I felt abandoned, like my prayers were hitting the ceiling and falling back on me. My faith started to shake. I still went to church, still smiled when people asked how I was doing, but inside, I was crumbling. It was a Wednesday night when everything began to shift. Our Bible study group had gathered in the basement of the church. There was a man there named Michael, in his late 50s, gentle eyes, silver hair, the kind of person who spoke slowly and always seemed to mean every word. He owned a small business but volunteered often at the church. That night, as we discussed the parable of the talents, I couldn't hold it in anymore. Tears just came. I told them everything: the debt, the fear, the endless prayers that seemed unanswered. Michael listened quietly, then said something that I'll never forget. Nicole, he said softly, sometimes God doesn't give us money. He gives us wisdom to manage it. He doesn't want us to depend on miracles. He wants us to become faithful stewards of what we already have. I looked at him, confused. "But I've been praying so hard," I said. "Doesn't God want to help me?" He smiled. "He does, but help doesn't always come as a check in the mail. Sometimes it comes as a lesson that changes the rest of your life." After the meeting, Michael handed me a Bible with a small sticky note marking a page. It was Matthew 25:30, the parable of the talents. That night, I read it over and over again. The master gave his servants different amounts of money before leaving on a journey. When he returned, he rewarded those who had invested and managed it wisely. But he punished the one who hid his share out of fear. Suddenly, it hit me. The master didn't reward the servant who asked for more. He rewarded the one who did something with what he was given. That story wasn't just about money, it was about trust, about responsibility, about faith in action. And for the first time, I realized God didn't hate money. He cared about how I used it. He wanted me to manage it with wisdom, not fear. From that day on, I decided to change. Not overnight, but step by step. I bought a notebook and started writing down every expense. Coffee, groceries, bus tickets, rent, all of it. I learned where every dollar went. I cut out things I didn't need, the subscription boxes, the takeout meals, the endless cups of cafe lattes I thought were small treats. I made a plan to pay off my debt, little by little. I found extra freelance work online, editing photos for small businesses, writing blog posts at night after my main jobs. Every morning, before opening my laptop, I prayed, not for a miracle, but for wisdom. Lord, give me the strength to manage what you've already placed in my hands. At night, I read books about biblical financial stewardship, authors like Dave Ramsey and Howard Dayton. I started to see money not as a curse, but as a tool, something God could use through me if I learned to handle it well. And somehow, the more intentional I became, the more peace I felt. Just when things started to feel stable, life threw another storm my way. It was early spring when my mom called. Her voice was trembling. "Nicole, it's Emma. She's had a high fever since last night. The doctor says she might need to be hospitalized." My heart sank. Every instinct in me screamed to rush home, to pay whatever it took. But I looked at my balance, and I knew I didn't have enough. The old me would have fallen apart, would have cried out, "Lord, please send me money. Please fix this." But this time I didn't. I sat on the edge of my bed, took a deep breath, and prayed differently. "Father, I don't ask for money. I ask for strength. Show me what to do." And somehow I knew what to do. I reached out to my clients and asked for extra assignments. I worked late into the night for 3 days straight. I sold an old camera I didn't use anymore. It wasn't easy, but within a week, I had enough to send home for Emma's care. She recovered, and when she did, I realized something. God had answered my prayer. Not by dropping money from heaven, but by giving me wisdom, resilience, and courage. He didn't make the problem disappear. He made me stronger to face it. Months passed. Slowly, my debt began to shrink. I started to breathe again. I still didn't make much, but I knew where every cent went, and that made all the difference. My stress faded. I smiled more. My calls with my parents turned from anxious check-ins to moments of laughter. Emma's voice on the phone became my favorite sound in the world. For the first time since my divorce, I felt like I was becoming someone new. I wasn't the same woman who begged for miracles. I was learning to be the miracle God was working through. Nicole no longer prayed for magic, I wrote in my journal one night. She prayed for mastery and found mercy. One Sunday morning during service, the pastor quoted Luke 16:10. "Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. I felt those words settle in my heart like truth I had known all along, but never lived out. Faith wasn't about sitting still and waiting for a rescue. Faith was about believing that God is working through the small, steady steps we take every day. When we manage well what He gives us, our money, our time, our gifts, He trusts us with more. That realization changed everything for me. God doesn't just want to hear our prayers, I thought. He wants to see our hands at work, our hearts believing, our minds planning. Faith and action together. That's where the miracle happens. Now, a year later, I'm still paying off debt, but I'm no longer afraid. My relationship with money and with God has changed completely. Every bill I pay is a reminder that He provides and that He's teaching me to provide too. Some nights I sit by the same window where I once cried over those unpaid bills, but now I whisper a different kind of prayer. Dear Lord, thank You for the silence that made me listen. Thank You for the wisdom that came through struggle. Thank You for teaching me to manage, not just to ask, for showing me that miracles don't always come from above. Sometimes they grow from within. Please bless everyone who's still waiting, still worrying, still wondering if You hear them. Remind them that You do, and that sometimes Your answer is not a gift, but a lesson that will change their life forever. Amen. If my story touched your heart, please don't keep it to yourself. Share it, because someone out there might need this reminder today. Hit like if you believe God is still working in your life, comment your own story of faith, and subscribe for more stories of hope, grace, and wisdom. Because sometimes the miracle you share becomes the miracle someone else was praying for.